3 months after the Battle of Proxima Station, the galaxy was a very different place. Captain Wu Jin of the coalition ship New Dawn wrote his weekly report as he patrolled the outer star systems. The space lanes that had been battlefields were now peaceful trade routes. Merchant ships traveled safely where Vorthan raiders had once hunted. But the peace came with stories that made even veteran space travelers nervous. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we are getting a distress signal from the Kepler system." Wu Jin frowned. Kepler had been abandoned months ago when the Vorthans took it over. "What kind of signal?" "Unknown, sir. It is not coalition and it is definitely not Vorthan." When they arrived at Kepler, they found something that would haunt Wu Jin's dreams for years. Floating in the system's asteroid belt were the remains of a Vorthan raiding fleet. 12 glass ships, each one perfectly intact except for surgical holes that had been cut through their hulls. The crews were gone, but there were no signs of struggle. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "the ships are arranged in a perfect line, like someone was displaying them. There was no sign of whatever had done this, but there was a message broadcasting on all frequencies. A simple children's lullaby from Earth, followed by coordinates leading to the nearest coalition patrol route." Wu Jin filed a classified report about the incident, but he knew it would be buried in the archives. The coalition leadership had made it clear that certain subjects were not to be discussed publicly. The official story was that the Vorthans had suffered massive losses at Proxima Station and asked for peace. What had actually happened was classified at the highest levels. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Hyun-Soo reviewed the mission reports from the Soul's Vengeance in his office beneath the Pacific Ocean. The ship had worked exactly as designed, but its effect on galactic politics was far greater than anyone had expected. The Vorthan Empire had not just surrendered. They had abandoned 3 star systems and begun extensive peace negotiations with every species they had previously considered prey. Their representatives spoke in whispers about the Ghost Ship and the Hunters from Sol, but the Vorthans were not the only ones affected. 7 other aggressive species had quietly scaled back their expansion plans. Piracy in human-adjacent systems had dropped by 67%. The galactic black market for military weapons had completely collapsed as buyers realized that no technology could protect them from enemies they could not see coming. "Sir," his aide announced, "President Jin-A is here for the briefing." President Jin-A entered the office looking tired but satisfied. The past 3 months had been challenging for Earth's government. Managing humanity's reputation as the galaxy's top predator while maintaining peaceful relations required constant diplomatic work. "What is the current situation?" she asked. "Better than expected," Hyun-Soo replied. "The non-interference treaties are still in effect, but now every species knows that our isolation is a choice, not a limitation." Jin-A nodded. Several species had quietly opened diplomatic channels with Earth, not seeking military alliances, but requesting assurance that humanity would remain neutral in their conflicts. The conversations were always polite and formal, but the subtext was clear. "Please do not decide that we need to stop existing." "What about the Soul's Vengeance?" Jin-A asked, officially retired. "The crew has been sworn to secrecy and reassigned to other duties." Hyun-Soo paused. "Admiral Young-min is now running advanced tactical training. His methods are effective." The former captain had become something of a legend among Earth's military forces. Officers who trained under him came away with a different understanding of warfare. They learned to think like persistence predators, studying their targets for weaknesses that could be exploited with surgical precision. "And the new project?" Hyun-Soo smiled grimly. "Engineer Chang-min assures me that the Soul's Vengeance was just the beginning. The new ship will be even more educational, but the real changes were happening throughout the galaxy." Captain So-jin, formerly the weapons officer of the Soul's Vengeance, now worked as an intelligence analyst for Earth Defense. She monitored communications from across known space, watching for signs of aggressive expansion or threats to peaceful species. Her reports painted a picture of a galaxy that had learned an important lesson. The Andromedans had established new trade routes that carefully avoided any systems. Within 50 light-years of Sol, the Chitauri had begun extensive diplomatic negotiations with species they had been at war with for decades. Even the notorious Zarkhan pirates had moved their operations to the far side of the galaxy. "Sir," So-jin reported to her supervisor, We are seeing a 73% reduction in interstellar conflicts. Most species seem to be focusing on internal development rather than expansion. It was not that the galaxy had become peaceful out of moral awakening. It was that everyone now understood there were consequences for disturbing the peace. Consequences that came from a species that treated warfare like a science to be perfected. The stories spread through merchant networks and diplomatic channels. Tales of ships that appeared from nowhere, studied their targets like laboratory specimens, and then eliminated them with terrifying efficiency. But the most effective deterrent was not the stories. It was the uncertainty. No one knew how many ships like the Soul's Vengeance humanity possessed. No one knew what other weapons Earth had developed during 50 years of apparent isolation. No one knew what would trigger the humans to decide that another species needed to be educated. Captain Tejo, who had survived the retreat from Kepler, now commanded a new coalition ship. He often thought about that desperate flight and the mysterious message his communications officer had sent to Seoul. Sometimes he wondered if Unbi had known something the rest of them did not. If she had understood that humans were not ignoring the galaxy's wars because they were weak or peaceful, they were ignoring them because they had been preparing for something much more important. The deepest archives of Earth's military records, classified files contained the true purpose of the Soul's Vengeance program. It had not been designed to fight wars or conquer territory. It had been designed to end the concept of war itself by demonstrating what happened when humans decided that something needed to stop existing. The galaxy was now at peace, but it was a peace built on a simple understanding that every species carried in the back of their collective consciousness. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humanity watched and waited. They had shown the galaxy what they were capable of when pushed too far. They had no intention of ever being pushed that far again. Admiral So-Jin reviewed the final intelligence reports from across known space. Trade was flourishing. Diplomatic relations were improving. Conflicts were being resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. The galaxy had learned that there are shepherds, there are wolves, and then there are humans. And humans do not hunt wolves for territory or food. They hunt them because wolves forgot their place in the natural order. In her final report, So-Jin wrote a single line that would become the unofficial motto of Earth's defense forces. The galaxy expected no help from humanity. What they received was education. The lesson has been learned. The stars were no longer dying, they were finally at peace. The final battle for Proxima Station began when the Soul's Vengeance decided to stop hiding. Captain Young-min stood on the bridge, watching as the remaining Vorthan fleet gathered around their massive command ship. 200 glass ships formed a defensive circle, their bioneural links fixed after hours of frantic work. The enemy thought they were safe. They were wrong. All stations battle ready, Young-min announced. Today the galaxy learns what humans do when peaceful species are pushed too far. The Soul's Vengeance turned off its hiding systems and appeared directly in the center of the Vorthan formation. The effect was immediate. Chaos Vorthan ships that had been scanning empty space suddenly found a human warship sitting among them like a wolf in a flock of sheep. Alarms screamed across their fleet as they tried to understand how something so large had gotten so close without being detected. But Young-min was not interested in explanations. Su-Jin, turn on Reaper protocols, he ordered. Weapons Officer Su-Jin had been waiting for this moment her entire career. Her fingers moved across the control panel with deadly precision. The Soul's Vengeance did not fire random shots. Instead, it began a systematic cutting apart of the Vorthan fleet. The first target was not the largest ship or the most dangerous. Su-Jin chose the communication hub that coordinated the enemy's bioneural network. One precise shot cut the connections between every Vorthan ship. In seconds, the enemy fleet went from a coordinated swarm intelligence to hundreds of individual ships working alone. Target acquired, Su-Jin reported calmly. Analyzing defensive patterns. The Soul's Vengeance studied its next target for exactly 3 seconds. The ship's computer systems analyzed the glass hull, mapped the internal structure, and calculated the most efficient way to destroy it. The second shot was 20% more effective than the first. The third shot was more effective than the second. Each weapon strike taught the Soul's Vengeance something new about Vorthan technology. Every destroyed enemy ship made the human ship more deadly against the survivors, but the most terrifying thing about the battle was not the ships, weapons, it was the crew. Tactical Officer Jae-hyun watched enemy movements with the cold efficiency of a persistence predator. He did not get excited when enemy ships exploded. He did not celebrate when the tide of battle turned. He simply marked each destroyed ship on his display and moved on to the next target. Engineer Kyung-ho watched his systems with the calm focus of someone who had trained for this moment his entire life. When enemy fire hit the Soul's Vengeance, he did not panic. He analyzed the damage, made repairs, and made the ship work better. Navigator Han-Nul piloted the ship through the chaotic battle like she was taking a peaceful cruise. She avoided enemy fire not through desperate evasive moves, but through careful calculation of where the shots would be before they were fired. The Vorthons had never faced anything like this. They were used to enemies who fought with emotion. Species that got angry, afraid, or desperate during battle. The humans showed no emotion at all. They fought like machines designed for the specific purpose of making enemies stop existing. Chief Medical Officer So Young watched the psychological effects of the battle on both sides. Coalition forces were amazed by their sudden rescue, but also deeply disturbed by the cold efficiency of their unexpected saviors. The Vorthons were experiencing something worse than fear. They were experiencing the complete breakdown of everything they thought they knew about warfare. "Sir," Mi-young reported, "enemy ships are breaking formation. They are not retreating in an organized way. They are fleeing in panic." Young Min nodded. This was exactly what human analysts had predicted. The Vorthons were a hive mind that had never experienced individual terror. When their coordination was broken, they had no idea how to function as separate entities. Soo-jin, demonstrate precision targeting. What happened next became legend throughout the galaxy. Soo-jin selected a Vorthon battleship that was trying to escape. Instead of destroying it completely, she fired a series of shots that disabled specific systems one by one. First, she knocked out the ship's weapons, then she disabled the engines, then she destroyed the life support systems. Finally, she made holes in the hull in exactly the right place to cause rapid air loss without killing the crew immediately. The entire demonstration took less than 30 seconds. The Vorthon ship was left floating helplessly while its crew experienced something their species had never felt before. The knowledge that they were completely at the mercy of something more dangerous than themselves. "Now destroy it," Young Min ordered. Soo-jin fired one final shot that vaporized the helpless ship instantly. The message was clear. The humans could have captured the ship and its crew. They chose not to. This was not about taking prisoners or gaining territory. This was about teaching a lesson that would never be forgotten. Admiral Dongwu watched the battle from his command center at Proxima Station. He had fought in dozens of conflicts during his career, but he had never seen anything like this. The human ship moved through the Vorthon fleet like a scythe through wheat. Every movement was calculated. Every shot was precise. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary destruction, no moment of hesitation. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "the human ship is contacting us." Dongwu turned on the channel. The face of Captain Young Min appeared on his screen. The human looked calm and professional, as if he was discussing routine patrol duties instead of the complete destruction of an enemy fleet. "Admiral Dongwu, this is Captain Young Min of the Earthship Soul's Vengeance. We are finishing our operations in this system. Captain, I do not know how to thank you. You have saved not just this station but probably dozens of species." Young Min's expression did not change. "Admiral, we suggest you forget this ship exists. Consider your debt to Earth paid. We will handle the remaining Vorthon forces." The channel closed before Dongwu could respond. Around Proxima Station, the last Vorthon ships were fleeing in absolute terror. But they would not get far. The Soul's Vengeance followed them into the darkness, hunting them down one by one with mechanical precision. By the time the battle was over, 200 Vorthon ships had been reduced to floating debris. The survivors carried a message that would spread throughout their empire. There were beings in the galaxy who did not fight for conquest or resources. They fought because they had decided that something needed to stop existing. And when humans made that decision, they did not just fight. They perfected the art of fighting until nothing was left but the lesson they wanted to teach. The galaxy would never be the same. In the depths of space, Other species monitored the battle through long-range sensors. What they saw would be talked about in whispers for generations. Humanity had not come to save the galaxy. They had come to educate it. The lesson was simple. There are shepherds, there are wolves, and there are humans, and humans do not negotiate with wolves. The Soul's vengeance arrived at the edge of the Proxima star system. Like a ghost in the dark, Captain Youngmin stood on the bridge and watched the computer screens show the terrible battle happening around Proxima Station. Coalition ships were fighting hard, but they were clearly losing. The Vorthons had surrounded the station with over 300 glass ships. Hiding systems working, reported Chief Engineer Baywan. We look like empty space and cosmic dust. They cannot see us. Good. Youngmin turned to his sensor officer. Mi Young, I want a complete study of every enemy ship. Find their weak spots, blind areas, and communication patterns. Everything. Lieutenant Mi Young had been studying the Vorthons for months, but seeing them fight in real life was different. She watched as the glass ships moved in perfect coordination, sharing information through bio-neural links. When one ship learned something, all of them learned it instantly. Sir, they work like a single living thing, she reported. Each ship is like a cell in a bigger body. That is how they adapt so quickly to coalition fighting methods. Youngmin nodded. He had expected this. What happens if we break the connections between the cells? Unknown, sir. No one has ever tried it. That was about to change. Youngmin turned on the ship's communication system. All stations, this is the captain. We are now beginning Operation Nightfall. Remember your training. We are not here to fight a war. We are here to teach the galaxy what humans do to things that threaten what we have chosen to protect. The bridge crew took their positions with calm efficiency. These were professionals who had trained their entire careers for this moment. Su Jin, begin psychological operations, Youngmin ordered. Weapons Officer Su Jin turned on systems that no other species had ever imagined. The Soul's vengeance began broadcasting on Vorthon communication frequencies. But not with threats or warnings. Instead, the ship sent children's lullabies from Earth. Soft, gentle songs that human mothers had sung to their babies for thousands of years. Mixed with the music were mathematical sequences that slowly revealed the exact position and weak spots of each Vorthon ship. The effect was immediate and disturbing. The Vorthons used sound for coordination, but they had never heard anything like human music. The lullabies created interference patterns in their bio-neural networks. Ships that should have been moving in perfect harmony began to drift slightly out of formation. Sir, Mi Young reported, the enemy ships are showing small coordination errors. Nothing major yet, but they are not working as efficiently as before. Excellent. Baywan, turn on the hull copying system. The Soul's vengeance began to change. Its hull metal shifted and reformed, using technology that Earth scientists had developed by studying shape-changing creatures from the deep ocean. In minutes, the ship looked exactly like a destroyed coalition cruiser. Youngmin smiled coldly. Now we go hunting. The human ship drifted toward the edge of the battle, broadcasting coalition distress signals. To the Vorthons, it looked like another damaged ship trying to escape. 3 Vorthon scout ships broke formation to investigate. They came toward the Soul's vengeance slowly, their glass hulls shining in the starlight. Distance, 4,000 meters, Su Jin reported. 3,000. 2,000. When the lead Vorthon ship was close enough to scan the Soul's vengeance, the human ship revealed its true nature. The copying system turned off, showing the ship's real hull. Weapon ports opened along the sides. But instead of firing right away, the Soul's vengeance did something that made the blood of every coalition officer freeze with fear. The human ship sent a simple message to the 3 Vorthon scouts. You are being studied. Then it destroyed all 3 ships with surgical precision. But that was just the beginning. Over the next 2 hours, the Soul's vengeance began a campaign of psychological warfare that no species in the galaxy had ever seen. The ship would appear as a friendly ship, bring enemy scouts close, study their defenses, and then destroy them with exactly the right amount of force needed. Not more, not less, just enough. Engineer Kyung-ho watched the ship's learning systems. Sir, the adaptive weapons are working perfectly. Each shot is 20% better than the last one. The Vorthons began to notice that their scout ships were disappearing, but they could not figure out how or why. The Soul's vengeance left no survivors and no evidence. Ships simply vanished from their formation. Sir, Mi Young called out excitedly, the enemy is showing signs of confusion. They are grouping their ships together defensively instead of maintaining attack formation. Young Min watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The Vorthons were doing exactly what human analysts had predicted. When faced with an unknown threat, they were giving up their aggressive tactics in favor of protection. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. "Sujin, target their communication relays." The Soul's Vengeance had identified the bio-neural transmitters that allowed Vorthon ships to coordinate with each other. These were hidden deep inside each glass hull, protected by layers of adaptive armor. But Sujin had something the Vorthons had never encountered: patience. The human ship began stalking individual Vorthon ships, following them for hours while studying their defensive patterns. Each ship rotated its shields and armor at regular times to prevent sustained attacks from any one direction. Sujin waited until she understood the exact timing of these rotations. Then she fired single, precise shots that hit each communication relay at the moment when it was least protected. The results were immediate and terrifying. Vorthon ships that had been working as a unified force suddenly found themselves isolated and alone. The bio-neural network that connected them began to break down. Ships that should have been sharing information were now working independently. "Sir," Mi-young reported with amazement, "the enemy fleet is losing coordination. They are not sharing tactical data anymore." On the bridge of the Coalition flagship, Admiral Dongwu watched in disbelief as the Vorthon attack suddenly became disorganized. Ships that had been moving in perfect coordination were now bumping into each other and firing in random directions. "What is happening?" he asked his tactical officer. "Unknown, sir. It is like something is disrupting their command structure." The admiral looked at the sensor display, but he could not see anything that might be causing the disruption. The Soul's Vengeance remained invisible to Coalition sensors, appearing only as empty space. But the effects of its presence were undeniable. Vorthon ships began retreating from the battle, not because they were losing, but because they were afraid. For the first time in their species' history, they were being hunted by something they could not understand or fight. Young Min turned on the ship's intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. Phase 2 is complete. The enemy is now working as individual units instead of a collective force. Prepare for Phase 3. "What is Phase 3, sir?" asked Navigator Hanul. Young Min looked at the tactical display, where hundreds of Vorthon ships were fleeing in panic from an enemy they could not see. "Phase 3 is when we teach them what humans learned a long time ago. In nature, there are predators and there are prey, and sometimes the prey does not realize what it is until it is too late." The Soul's Vengeance disappeared into the darkness between the stars, following the retreating Vorthons like a shark following the scent of blood. The galaxy was about to learn that humans did not just fight wars, they perfected them. 3 miles under the ocean, Fleet Admiral Hyun-soo stood in a room that was not supposed to exist. The room was cut out of solid rock and covered with special metal that could hide from any known scanner in the galaxy. Only 12 people in Earth's entire government knew about this place. Even fewer people knew what was hidden inside it. In front of Hyun-soo floated a ship that broke every rule of fair fighting. The Soul's Vengeance was not like other warships in the galaxy, where alien ships were built to take territory or defend planets. This ship was designed for something much darker. It was built to end wars by making the enemy too scared to fight. "Sir," said Captain Young Min as he walked up with a tablet computer, "we got the message from Proxima Station." Hyun-soo took the tablet and read the Coalition's final report. The Vorthons had eaten 3 more star systems. The enemy fleet now had over 2,000 ships, and each one was bigger than before. If they kept growing at this speed, they would control half the galaxy in 6 months. "What does Earth Command say?" Young Min asked. "They are having meetings. The president is looking at our peace treaties." Hyun-soo gave the tablet back. "But I think we both know how this will end." Young Min nodded. He had been expecting this day for 5 years, ever since Earth's leaders approved the Soul's Vengeance project. Earth's government had always known that staying out of galactic wars would only work for so long. "How long until the ship is ready?" Hyun-soo asked. Chief Engineer Bae-won says 6 hours for final checks. Weapons Officer Soo-jin finished loading the special weapons. Navigator Hanul has the course planned through dimensions that do not officially exist. Hyun-soo walked closer to the ship. From the outside, it looked almost normal. Just another medium-sized ship with regular engines and standard hull metal. That was done on purpose. The Soul's Vengeance was designed to make enemies think it was weak. But inside, it carried technology that even most humans found disturbing. The ship's hiding system did not just make it invisible to scanners. It made the ship look like empty space and cosmic dust. The enemy would never know it was there until it was far too late. The weapon systems were even more frightening. Instead of normal energy beams or missiles, the Soul's Vengeance carried smart weapons that learned from each target. Every shot it fired would be better than the last one. But the ship's most scary feature was its crew. Young men had picked each person from Earth's best military units. These were not soldiers who fought for glory or to conquer worlds. They were professionals who studied war like other people studied art or science. Sujin had spent 3 years studying every battle the Coalition had fought against the Vorthons. She knew the enemy's fighting methods better than the enemies knew themselves. Her weapon systems were programmed with weak spots that the Vorthons did not even know they had. Baywan had designed engines that could work in dimensions most aliens could not even detect. The ship could literally disappear from normal space and appear anywhere it wanted. Hanul could plot courses through areas of space that were considered impossible to travel through. She had studied ancient Earth methods of persistence hunting, where predators followed their prey for days or weeks until the victim collapsed from exhaustion. The rest of the crew were experts in psychological warfare, electronic spying, and tactical analysis. Each person had been trained to think like humanity's ancient predators. "Sir," a voice called from across the room. Communications Officer Minho was watching the quantum channels. "We are getting real-time updates from the battle." Hyun-Soo walked over to the communication station. The screen showed tactical displays from the Coalition's desperate fight at Proxima Station. The Vorthons were attacking in waves, their glass ships growing larger as they ate disabled Coalition ships. "How many refugee ships made it?" Young Min asked. 17, including Commander Taeho's Starfall. Minho pulled up another screen. "Admiral Dongwu is asking for immediate evacuation of important people and genetic samples from endangered species." Hyun-Soo watched as another Coalition ship disappeared from the display. The defenders were fighting bravely, but they were clearly losing. In a few more hours, the last free station in the galaxy would fall to the Vorthons. "Sir," came another voice. Chief Analyst Ji-won walked up with a thick folder. "Final psychological profile on the Vorthons." Hyun-Soo opened the folder and read the analysis. The Vorthons were a hive mind species that had never felt individual fear. They conquered through overwhelming force and adaptation, eating their enemies to become stronger. But there was something interesting in the report. The Vorthons had never faced an enemy that fought back using methods they could not understand or adapt to. They were used to direct fights, not psychological tricks or stealth tactics. "They have never been hunted," Ji-won explained. "They are always the hunter, never the prey. Our computer models suggest that if we can reverse those roles, their entire military structure might fall apart." Young Min looked up from his own reading. "What about their ability to adapt to new weapons?" "That is the key," Ji-won replied. "They adapt to direct threats, but they cannot adapt to threats they cannot detect or understand. If we use psychological warfare combined with stealth tactics, we can break their coordination before they realize what is happening." Hyun-Soo closed the folder. Earth scientists had spent decades studying other species' military tactics. Not to conquer them, but to understand how to defeat them if it ever became necessary. It had definitely become necessary. "Admiral," Minho called out urgently. "Priority message from President Jinnae." The main screen turned on, showing the president in the underground command center in Seoul. She looked tired but determined. "Admiral Hyun-Soo, you are authorized to begin Operation Nightfall. The Security Council voted unanimously. We cannot allow the Vorthons to continue expanding." "Understood, Madam President. What are our rules for fighting?" "There are no rules. The galaxy is about to learn why humans stayed neutral for 50 years. Show them what we built while everyone was ignoring us." The connection ended. Around the room, technicians began final preparations for launch. The Soul's Vengeance would be ready in hours. Young Min turned to his admiral. "Sir, what should we tell the crew about our mission?" Hyun-Soo looked at the ship one more time. Somewhere in the darkness of space, thousands of innocent beings were dying while glass monsters ate their worlds. The galaxy had expected no help from humanity. They were right. What the Soul's Vengeance would provide was not help. It was education. "Tell them we are going hunting," Hyun-Soo said quietly, "and remind them that humans have been the most successful persistence predators in Earth's history." We do not kill our prey quickly. We make them understand that they were never really predators at all. The stars burned red as another coalition ship died. Commander Tejo pressed his face against the cold window of the bridge and watched the explosion fade into nothing. His ship, the Starfall, rocked back and forth as pieces of metal hit the hull. The noise was loud and scary like thunder during a storm. "Commander, we need to leave right now," said Yunbi. She worked at the communications desk and her voice shook with fear. "The Vorthan ships are breaking through our defense line." Tejo nodded but said nothing. His fleet had been running away from the Kepler 442 star system for 8 long hours. What started as a normal retreat had become a fight for their lives. The Vorthans were not just winning the war. They were eating everything in space. The enemy ships looked like monsters made of black glass and twisted metal. Every time they destroyed a coalition ship, they somehow ate the pieces and became bigger and stronger. It was like fighting a disease that got worse each time you tried to cure it. "Give me a report," Tejo said to his crew. Lieutenant Kyung-soo looked up from his computer screen. His face was pale and tired. "We still have 17 refugee ships with us, sir. The fish people lost 2 more ships in the last attack. The bug people want permission to scatter and run in different directions. No, we stay together." Tejo had seen what happened to ships that tried to run alone. The Vorthans hunted them down like wild animals chasing injured prey. At least together they had a small chance. The bridge became quiet except for the steady beeping of computers and the low humming of the engines. Through the radio, Tejo could hear other ship captains talking. Some spoke in languages he did not understand, but fear sounded the same in every language. "Sir," Yunbi called softly. "Message coming in from Admiral Dongwu at Proxima Station." Put it on the main screen. The tired face of Admiral Dongwu appeared on the big screen in front of them. The old man looked like he had not slept in days. His uniform was dirty and wrinkled, and his eyes were red and tired. "Tejo, what is your situation?" "We are holding together, Admiral. 17 refugee ships plus the Starfall. But the Vorthans are getting closer. We will not make it much longer at this rate." Dongwu's face became even more worried. "I know. We lost contact with the Tau Ceti defense fleet 3 hours ago. The Andromedans are reporting Vorthan ships attacking their home system. The enemy is spreading faster than we can stop them." Tejo felt his stomach drop. If the Andromedans were being attacked, that meant the Vorthans had broken through every defense line. The Andromedans were the strongest military force in the galaxy. If they could not stop the Vorthans, nobody could. "How much time do we have?" Tejo asked. "Maybe 3 days, maybe less." Dongwu looked straight at the camera. "Tejo, I need you to get those refugee ships to Proxima Station safely. They might be the last survivors of their entire species." "I understand, sir." The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Tejo looked around at his crew. These people had served with him for 3 years. They trusted him to bring them home safely. But home might not exist much longer. "Yunbi, send a message to all refugee ships. Tell them we are making one more jump through hyperspace, then we will reach Proxima Station." "Yes, sir." Yunbi started typing on her keyboard. Then she stopped and looked up. "Sir, should I send out a general distress call for help?" Tejo thought about it. Normal procedure was to ask for help on all radio frequencies. But who was left to help them? The coalition fleet was scattered or destroyed. The neutral species had closed their borders and refused to get involved. Even the mighty Andromedans were fighting for their own lives. "Send it," he decided. "All frequencies. Maybe someone out there is still listening." Yunbi nodded and began typing again. The message was simple: coalition forces retreating. Multiple alien species facing total extinction. Request immediate help from any available military forces. She sent the message out into empty space, knowing that probably no one would answer. Most species in the galaxy had their own problems now. The Vorthans seemed to be everywhere at once, their glass ships appearing in star systems that should have been completely safe. But Yunbi did something else. Something that was not in the official rules. She sent a second message toward a small yellow star at the edge of known space, a star called Sol where the humans lived. Everyone knew about humans. They had joined galactic society about 50 years ago, claiming one star system and then politely refusing to get involved in anyone else's business. They had signed peace treaties with everyone and kept to themselves. Most alien species thought humans were just another peaceful race that wanted to be left alone. They had never shown interest in galactic politics or military matters. When asked to join the coalition, they had politely said no. When invited to sign trade agreements, they participated very little. When wars broke out, they stayed completely neutral. The message Yunbi sent to Seoul was different from the general distress call. It was not asking for help. Humans had made it very clear they did not want to get involved in other people's wars. Instead, she sent what was basically a final report. A notification that the coalition was about to fall completely, and that the Vorthans would probably control this entire part of the galaxy within a few months. She included tactical information, enemy ship details, and casualty reports. The message ended with a simple statement. We remember Earth's isolation policies. We ask for nothing. This is merely notification of our end. Taeho did not know about the second message. He was too busy watching the sensor screens as more Vorthan ships appeared at the edge of the star system. The enemy was getting closer every minute. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump to Proxima, he ordered. The refugee convoy made its final leap toward what might be the last free space station in the galaxy. Behind them, the Vorthans consumed another solar system, their glass ships growing larger and more powerful with each victory. Far away in the deep darkness between stars, Yunbi's message traveled toward Seoul at the speed of light. It would take several hours to reach Earth, where it would be received by humans who had been watching the war from a safe distance, humans who had been preparing for something that the rest of the galaxy could not even imagine. The galaxy was about to learn that some species choose to stay isolated not because they are weak, but because they are very dangerous. And when peaceful species are pushed too far, they do not just fight back. They perfect the art of fighting back, but right now, all Taeho could do was run and hope that somehow, somewhere, someone would find a way to stop the glass death that was consuming everything he had ever known and loved.